Oh, Snake's Revenge. I'll keep this one short and to the point, since I really don't like delaying needlessly with stuff I already covered in the previous session. What I do need to touch on before we start is Ultra Games' handling of Snake's Revenge, and more specifically its box and its manual. See, Ultra Games was infamous for the odious practice of taking games they were releasing and fucking with the manual and box to add things like references to pop culture and current events in the backstory of the game itself. As an example, Metal Gear's box declared that the main villain of the game was Vermin Katafi, and gave this fake villain an extensive, if completely absurd, backstory. Of course, as you saw from the last playthrough of Metal Gear's NES release, Katafi, who is a pretty obvious parody of Muammar al-Gaddafi, was never in the game at all, on any level, and he was purely thus a fabrication of Ultra Games and had nothing to do with the game itself. Very similar is true in Snake's Revenge, in which the villain is said to be Hayarola Kakamami. Again, an above-average obvious parody of Ayatollah Khomeini, and again, this was fabricated in manual and on box only, and he does not actually exist in the game itself. It was just one more way Ultra Games would shit all over the games it was supposed to release as a subsidiary company of Konami, and one of about 5 reasons that Ultra Games ceased to exist circa the mid-90s. So with that in mind, here's the actual plot. It's been about 3 years since the fall of Outer Heaven, and the threat it posed to global stability has ended. But it's given rise to a series of regional conflicts as the various forces formerly stationed at Outer Heaven have hightailed it. Some have sold their services to other countries, others went walkabout, joining up with other governments, PMCs, or terrorist groups. One of the largest groups of the remaining forces, however, have set up in the midst of a country with an ongoing rebellion at the border. For nearly 2 years, the remnants of Outer Heaven have been pretty much contained, however. And then, suddenly, dire news. It became known that the remnants had been working on a next-generation weapon system of some sort, and that it would be transferred between 2 main bases within a week. With no other options, Foxhound assembled a team of specialists to infiltrate the facilities, find out what the enemy was up to, and destroy it outright if possible. Since there was no time to sneak in any infiltration units other than Metal Gear's Jennifer, who informed Foxhound of the threat in the first place, Snake sent in with Nick Meyer, an explosive disposal expert with the know-how of how to disarm nuclear warheads, and John Turner, an infiltration expert. And with that said, let us begin. Alright, let's lead off. Almost immediately on this one, you get the pretty cool little intro of the Metal Gear tank, which is actually remarkably factual compared to the TX-55 Metal Gear, which of course is the featured model on Metal Gear 1. Believe it or not, all those little decals actually indicate the programmers and such of the game, which I thought was kind of cool. So yeah, this is a surmised version of what I just told you a minute ago. They're worried it might be Metal Gear, or worse, they're sending you in to deal with the situation. Bloody frickin' da. I just want to point out, no mention of Hayarola Kakamami. Fuck you, Ultra Games. Snake's gotten quite a bit beefier, hasn't he? And with this, we're dropped off. Note the big sprites. I really like that. This game was released about about 2 years after the original, and it shows. Well, actually, technically closer to 3 years after, if we count the development time costs. But yeah, let's get right into this one. You actually start with both a pistol and a knife, as well as your unarmed attacks in Snake's Revenge, which is a total change of pace from the original, and was actually the inspiration to, in later Metal Gear games, start you armed. I'm dead serious. The basic gist is that your knife is basically the equivalent of your punch, except it kills enemies in 1 shot instead of 3, dealing 3 HP damage per shot, as opposed to the punch's 1, 3 being as much damage as the handgun bullets. The commander, of course, tells us right here that he can't follow us any further with the flares because we're in the enemy's airspace now and he can't risk getting shot down. Anyway, the general gist is that you actually start equipped in this game. And the reason why you might want to use the punch as opposed to using your the knife is enemies that are killed during infiltration mode, not during alert mode, but during infiltration mode, if you down them with punches, they have a vastly higher item drop rate than they do if you killed them with the knife. Both are pretty good though. Every weapon in Metal Gear was set up kind of differently, but in Snake's Revenge they're actually set up so that all of them do different damages and have different effects against different enemies. For example, the punch does 1 damage, so it takes 3 punches to down most normal enemies. Conversely, 1 bullet will take them down as normal. This is the part that kind of drives everyone crazy about the opening chapter of Snake's Revenge. Several of these searchlights are just positioned very badly. Like, in the original Metal Gear, it was kinda... If you knew what you were doing, it was possible to kinda half-ass it. Snake's Revenge doesn't let you screw around like that. Snake's Revenge is a lot harder. Both just due to the enemy intelligence and due to the changes in the engine. If you notice, the graphics are notably improved as far as the environments go. I can't say much regarding Snake's fucking red outfit, but most of the like in-game graphics for like the bulk of the area are considerably improved over the original. There's 2 prisoners you can save in the jungle area, and both of them are worth getting. As is the case in the original Metal Gear, you rank up by rescuing people, although in this game you also rank up by interrogating officers, which we'll do a bit later. I want to know who the hell parked that Jeep up there. Anyway, one big problem with Snake's Revenge, and something that pisses a lot of people who played the original off, this game's specifically set up to fuck with players of the original Metal Gear. Oh yeah, I'm totally coming out and saying it. For example, your gunfight has a pathetically short range compared to Metal Gear. Metal Gear, all of your guns were full screen range. Snake's Revenge, your pistol, is, I think, less than 1/3 of the screen for range. Ditto for the SMJ. Which kinda makes it so the pistol is even less of a viable option than it was previously. I think Kojima actually liked that though, because the pistol was less... What's the word I'm looking for? The pistol was less of like your primary viable option, and it actually did force you to think about what you were doing before you actually infiltrated, even after you get the silencer. And here's John's miraculously awesome plan. Get self-captured and run in before they close the door. Brilliant. Also, Snake's Revenge's English is a little bit less obvious, but it's no less there. I'll be sure to point out obvious examples of it when we actually get there. And we're finally inside the building. Again, one nice thing you notice immediately, graphically, it's a notable improvement over the original. I don't like some of the enemy setups, because the enemies are not only smarter, but they're set up in such a way that they're actually harder to deal with. But more on that later. Well, our early enemies are these, you know, bizarre-looking friggin' guys with the gray helmets and no shirt for some reason. These guys are actually the most common enemy in the game, and they're actually pretty dangerous, unlike the guards from the previous Metal Gear. Like, in the previous Metal Gear, if one of them got close, they could seriously fuck up your shit. In this one, they're really good shots, and they know what they're doing, and they actively take cover. Which really is kind of a pain in the ass. Also, when you trigger an alert, you can't shut it off simply by going to the next area. The alert will continue until you deal with the hit squad. Or you get to an elevator. Again, you saw me take down a couple of guys right there. Again, 3 punching them. They drop items if you kill them with the punch. If you kill them with the knife, they sometimes drop items, but the drop rate is infinitely lower. And here we got a silencer. Ironically, this is an area you can go to before you ever enter the building, but if you do enter it, the silencer simply will not be there. I always thought that I found some kind of weird thing that broke the game when I did that. But yeah, your pistol is silenced now for all the good it does. Remember how much of a game changer that the pistol was in the original Metal Gear? Not quite the case here. Mostly because your most effective way of dealing with things is to deal with them quietly. And that means punching the shit out of people and stabbing them and shit. Save another guard. The enemy has a truth gas. If you find some, you can get classified information out of the enemy. Yes, there is a truth gas. No, I have no idea how it's supposed to work. Even my skill with pseudoscience is not really that strong. Or why the enemy has it. Not bad for a bunch of armed militia groups. By the way, I know that all of you right now are thinking, God damn, I could make a really nasty racist joke about about most of the enemies in this game appearing darker skinned. Please don't. They're just looking like that because, unfortunately, that's the way the color palette pans out. Believe it or not, I know exactly why they're this coloration. They use this exact color throughout the entire game, and there's a number of areas where it's specifically intended because there's darker backgrounds. The general gist is, it's the one color palette pattern they could have picked that sticks out against every terrain. I do kind of miss our shirtless guys of yore, though, from Metal Gear. Granted, these guys are shirtless too, but they have helmets, so obviously they're lower in rank. Just remember, hat is high rank, helmet not high rank. It's like a law. The bigger the hat, the more important the guy, right? Obviously, the commander of this base is going to have like a hat that's like 40 feet high. Helmet is actually a rank below hatless. Although I've heard many argue that those are supposed to be turbans, and if they are, that's kind of funny. Of course, it makes the joke that Ultra Games made even more offensive when you stop and think about it, so write that off as you will. My big problem with Snake's Revenge, as far as level design goes, is a lot of it is back and forthing across familiar areas. Like, for Metal Gear, you were exploring the same building, but you were always accessing new areas of it, so there was always stuff to check out. That isn't the case in Snake's Revenge. Snake's Revenge, you have very linear levels for the first couple of spots, and then later on it gets much less linear, and about the time you leave the train, the game becomes completely delinear once again. But still, compared to the original, it's got a very, you know, standard progression to it. Like, this, I think, is the only building of this base that we're in right now. It's pretty much the only one of its kind that we encounter for, like, a while. Because I know the next level's the ship, and then after that we have Compound 3. Yeah, it's kind of weird like that. I like that you don't see any vehicles around here. It gives you a good grasp that these guys are a lot more desperate than the guys that ever have more. But they are both more intelligent, more aggressive, and better shots. So take that as you will. Okay, that was my own damn fault. Worth noting, this game uses the exact same engine as Castlevania 3, as far as graphics goes. And this is the first of the officers, and you can interrogate him with truth gas. He counts as a prisoner rescued if you interrogate him. Sadly, to the best of my knowledge, unless you go all out, it is impossible to get to 3 stars before the end of the ship. As I recall, this is because the game sets your stars to 3 automatically the second you beat the ship area, which we're not going to do for a bit yet. Again, rank works the same way. Increased life gauge, increased ability to carry things, increased ability to carry ammo. you are going to see me backtrack to do a lot of ammo recollection from the guys around here. Mostly because Snake's Revenge demands that you do so. Like the first boss, you remember in Metal Gear, there was a lot of wildly swaying difficulty as far as the bosses went. You had your early game baddies who could be kind of tricky if you weren't careful, like the shotgunner and the machine gun kid. And then you had ones that just were absolute buttfuckery, like the fucking tank. In Metal Gear, there was a lot of variants. In Snake's Revenge, oh my god. Snake's Revenge's bosses are set up so that if you're not ready, they will rape you. And your family. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most of the bosses in this game are harder than the toughest bosses in Metal Gear. Also, this officer actually gives us useful information that he tells us that the weapon shipment that they're setting up is already ready, and it's actually very difficult to get near the port. This is your only real indication that there's a boss anywhere near the port, and there is in fact a very difficult boss guarding the port. You're going to see what I meant by just how difficult this game is as far as bosses with this first one, because it is merciless. We're not quite in the area of Nintendo hard, but we're getting there. On the plus side, this is where we get our first new gun. Does that look familiar to you? It should. It was a grenade launcher in Metal Gear. But in this game, it's actually the weapon it should be. An SMG. That's an MP5 SD. Something I always thought was kind of weird is, if you don't have the silencer by this point, that gun actually is not silenced, despite the fact that the model on that gun is one that has an integral suppressor. These are oxygen tanks. We're going to use them in the side-scrolling segments when we go underwater. Unfortunately, Snake's Revenge does not have anything resembling a gas mask, so you have to deal with gas every time you enter that area. Which sucks, but c'est la vie. Yeah, you caught me by surprise there. There we go. And here we get plastic explosives. Another favorite from the previous game. In this game, though, they can actually be useful, because not only do you use them as demo charges, but their blast radius is big enough that they can actually kill things. They're still kind of useless, though, and they're still pretty much your worst weapon, but they can at least be actually useful now. Right now we're going to swing on back and we're going to restock on Truth Gas. Not because I want to, because frankly it makes the game infinitely less of a pain in the ass down the line. Again, notice how the enemies will actively stop in order to try to weave around and take cover. It's a big difference. Also, considering the fact that all of your weapon ranges suck in this, it actually makes it quite a bit harder. I gotta tell you, that mechanic that you can actually get items from them when you kill them with punches is a great way of encouraging you to actually use close combat more often. Because you saw me playing the original Metal Gear. The second I got the handgun with the silencer, there was no reason for me to ever engage in close combat again. In this game, oh, you best believe I'm going to be using that a lot. You're going to wind up using the knife a lot too, whether you like it or not, but that's just how the game is. So now we restock on Truth Gas. Truth Gas. What the fuck is in Truth Gas? Something tells me it'll hurt my head if I think about it too much. Anyway, these guys get a little bit more items. God damn it. See, the enemies are smarter about positioning, and they know that they outrange you. Your one major escape route is always the elevator, which the game also uses as save points. Unlike Metal Gear, where your location on spawning was based on rank, in Snake's Revenge it's based on which elevator you went to and which floor you went to last. In general, you'll respawn on either the very area that you started, or in an elevator. Elevators are safe places, I think the game is trying to teach us. I spend way too much time dicking around here. I probably could have shaved 3 or 4 minutes off this video if I had, you know, fucked up less. It happens. Considering I made it through the opening area with minimal, you know, alarms, I think I earned myself this little fuck up. This is a pain in the ass. Oh, there we go. Fuck you. Yeah, see what I said about it being very difficult? They just fucked my shit up right there. It's alright though. It's not gonna stop us from carrying this mission out. Also, unlike Metal Gear, you don't wind up fucking around with the transceiver that often here. Kinda sad. I know, you were looking forward to me harassing Diane some more too. I think we're restocked on ammo enough by now. Okay, I think I have a full clip for the SMG. Do I? Let me check. Yes, I do. Fucking card key. Here we have... Ooh. Oh, these guys. This isn't the area I'm thinking about. It's the next one. Yeah, here we have those fucking cameras. And that one's really bad because you can't get around it in any way. It will spot you. I'm gonna do that just to fuck with you. The grenade launcher may be gone, but we still have grenades available. Actually, I think Metal Gear Solid 2 was the only one that had the grenade launcher. C'est la vie. The SMG itself actually is a pretty mixed weapon in this. The fact that the range is shorter is actually kind of a benefit to it, because it prevents it from spraying all over the place like it did in the original. On the other hand, it still sprays all over the place. It is really useful against multiple enemies, I will give it that. I'm just gonna hit these guys up for some rations before we head out. A little ammo wouldn't hurt either. Those elevators are part of the side-scrolling segments, but you'll see those in more detail in a sec. And I'm not gonna lie, I fail pretty hard through those. Mostly because the enemy positioning is really unpredictable and it fucks with you really badly. There we go. One more ration and we're good to go. Bingo. Let's move. And This is one of the side-scrolling segments. I hate these so much. Actually, I think everybody does. Like, it's a cool idea in theory. In practice, it's just a pain in the dick. So the major issue here is, again, you first start playing, you think to yourself, God damn, you die instantly. Well, you still have access to most of your gear, and you can still use the handgun, among other things. But it's still completely out of place and actually kind of difficult. Especially since, again, if you get spotted here, it's a pain in the dick. Those mines do a shitload of damage if you touch them. And this is why we picked up the oxygen tanks earlier, so that we could swim through this area. The difference is the oxygen tanks in this game run out. They didn't in the original. Also, for some reason, most of the oxygen tanks in the N6 Revenge are in areas that are protected by, like, you know, gas and stuff. Stuff that would be stopped by oxygen tanks, really. I hate those guys. Anyway, it's time for us to face our first boss. I don't know their names because they don't have any. But they fight like football players and look like football players. Now, my friend Dan has informed me that it's possible, and though pretty difficult to destroy them with the explosives. In practice, I found that simply too risky, and usually I just wind up shooting the shit out of them. These guys will rape you incredibly easily if you're not careful. Cutting kind of close here, Jesus. But yeah, these guys are tough, and really tough. The more of them you kill, however, the easier they get. Until eventually it gets to the point where they'll only hit you, like, where they're unlikely to hit you if you keep moving. So they're down to 3 already. I'm running low on ammo, though. Jesus, cut that one close, didn't I? Whew, son of a bitch. God damn, these are like the Denver Broncos, except they don't miss their blocks. And I'm shooting them. Shit, I'm running low on ammo. And I'll die in one more hit. This is not looking good. Oh god, son of a bitch. That was fortuitous. Jesus fucking Christ. Who did I cut that one close? See if we can swing a ration out of these guys. It's worth it so we don't instantly die if we get shot upstairs. You know what, I'll settle for an ammo box. Oh, okay. You know when I said I'd settle for a box? I lied. Give me a ration, please. There we go. Now we can keep moving. Ooh. Shit, that was close. have now... Ooh. I forgot about these guys. These door-blocking objects will send you flying if you touch them. Their main thing is to just protect the door from you using them. They're vulnerable only to melee attacks and explosives. Melee attacks dealing their normal damage to them, and explosives dealing about 10 a shot. By explosives I mean plastic explosives, not just explosive weapons. We are now at the port. Or at least the bottom part of the port. Oh, there we go. That's useful. Appears that John is a hostage on the ship. Well, we are headed to this ship anyway, so... This is where we will make a save point, and we will continue next episode. Stay tuned, peeps.